here. Yep. This person goes to the question, who am I? Often we relate ourselves in terms of the world, such as a student or as an employee. Now, the topic just now we have finished, so we're coming to the self. Okay. Now, activity, you can select someone you are familiar with. Okay, select someone you're familiar with. Could be your spouse, or could be your best friend, or could be your boss. Now, how would you describe this person? Now, what does his part of him or her made up of? Now, if this person has changed in his or her life, would he or she be different right now? Mostly, it does. People do change. Now, self and identity, we come precisely into looking the self. Immanuel Kant, he is one of the famous psychologists. He questions, usually, do we see ourselves as a social subject or a social object? Social subject, we think a lot within ourselves. And for social object, it is like a mirror. So every morning when you wake up and you see yourself in the mirror, you see yourself as an object. Yep. Now, some people, they would require themselves to see more of themselves as social subject. It's because they'll be in front of a public, an audience, because they need to portray a very good self-image. Some people, they don't care much about their portraying as a social subject. So they look more on the social object. So they look more on the social subject. Let's say like a painter or the artist, they don't care much about how they portray outside, like an object. They look more within themselves. So even the pictures or the drawings that they draw, it reflects a lot on their personality or their interests or their past experiences. Now, or do you see yourself as an individual self or collective self? Do you see yourself as just one person, or are you a collective? Collective hereby not that you have many of yourselves. Hereby collective means that you see yourself as a group. You belong to part of the society. Now, social identity is defined of part of individual's self-concept, which derives from his or her membership in a social group together with the values and emotional significance attached to that membership. Now, ethnic identity is one of the things that we need to realize about. Ethnic, no matter how ethnic is important because it is the root to who you are. We have to know our root. That is important. I mean, one Malaysia concept, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. But in the end, you need to know who you are. I mean, to know who you are, to know what your culture is. Now, that is ethnic identity. We can't discard that. We can't neglect that. Because by just calling, we need to know who we are, what we belong to. We need to go back to the root. It's like a tree. We need to know what the root is. We don't look at the name of the garden. We look at the root of the tree. Next one, social identity plus your ethnic identity usually result in your self-stereotyping. Meaning, when we come to how to identify ourselves, first our own ethnic identity, and then together with the situation that we are in. In the situation that we are in and how we portray, this is called the social identity. Now, self-stereotyping, what does it mean? It means perceiving oneself as a member of a particular group and consequently behaving in line with this social identity because you perceive yourself as a member and that's how you behave like that member. Let's say if you joined a gangster, if you are part of the gangster, I am sure you would have a self-stereotyping to how a gangster should behave. For sure, you would engage in smoking or a funny sign language or hand language and some foul language as well. Because these are part of your social identity. You, as a gangster, you behave in this way. Now, see how a teenage boy behave in front of family members and with friends. Now, I have one teenage boy, my friend. When he's in front of the family member, he would be like the best kid ever. He would listen to his mom. His mom would say, "This is my lovely boy." Okay, because in his mom's eye, she just saw the best of the kid. Yeah, but when he's out with his friends, drinking or clubbing, you would imagine how he behaves, yeah? It's very, very different. Now, because how he behaves differently, it's because the ethnic identity part is still the same, but the social identity part, it becomes different. Now, the culture and the self. Now, it's important to look in the culture. I always encourage people to reflect back on their culture, to try to be a nobody. It's really nobody. You have to know who you are and always be proud of that. Now, there's two things we have to know. The first one is the independent self. Independent self meaning I am independent myself. Now, this one mostly happened in the Western culture, whereby they focus a lot on the person, not the family members. Next one, minus the social factor, meaning our real self. You find meaning within yourself. You don't care how other people think, yeah? Next one is the interdependent self. Interdependent self means you have connection and you have relation to other people. That's why you are who you are today. And culture plays a huge factor in whether you put a lot of yourself in independent or you put a lot of yourself in interdependent. Now, in interdependent self, in relation to our culture or society, we behave in that way. We find meaning through, not nicely said, it's called pleasing others, because we want to adapt to the culture that we are in. Now, however, to any extent, we are bound by our culture, for sure. As culture is what our root is, it's a big part of our identity. Now, from this table, you can see the independent societies or the interdependent societies. Hereby, it's not the person, but hereby it's the society. Society looks in terms of the bigger picture. It's not just yourself. Yep. So take a look at the difference. Independent society, it's distinctive from other people, which the attributes are consistent. It's the ability to act on oneself. I don't need other people's opinion. I can do it myself. There's a need for individual distinctiveness. I'm special myself. Yep. Preference for egalitarianism, nihilism, and achieved status based on accomplishment, and conviction that rules governing behavior should apply to everyone. Next one, interdependence. We look at ourselves linking to others or attributes depending on the situation. Now, our preference is for collective action. We look collectively what we want to do, what we are about to do. Now, of course, we desire for harmonious. The main thing is that we hope that everyone living in our society or culture will live happily and harmoniously. Now, the acceptance is usually based on hierarchy and ascribed based on your age, your group, and so on. So if you're interdependent, people would define you through your age or define you through your gender. There's also a preference for rules that take context and particular relationships into account. Next one, identity. Now, we have different types of identity. Same with we have different types of role. Social identity, we have our social identity because we always have to look at people outside this world, okay? Unless you're a housewife and you always stay inside your house cooking for your children. Now, social identity, it's a group membership, okay? And even if you're a housewife, your social identity, you are a housewife, yeah? Now, or personal identity. Personal identity means your own self. Now, brewers, in 2001, he described as having 4 identities. The first one as collective self. The second one is the